It's that time again. Turn out the lights and cast darkness. It's the next episode of Drizzt Done Right, the podcast all about our favorite Drow, Drizzt Do'Urden. My name is Justin, and in episode 9, we'll be diving deep into chapter 9 of Homeland, titled Families, discussing all of our favorite plot points, characters, and more.
And my name is Jeffrey. Of course, we love Dungeons & Dragons, so we're also going to discuss some of the parts of this chapter and how it relates to the tabletop game. Maybe, try to draw some parallels between the two.
Following along with the show is easy. Just grab a copy of the book, read the next chapter, and tune in every week. But remember, we want to hear your thoughts too, so make sure to reach out to us at drizzdoneright@gmail.com.
And if you haven't figured it out yet, boy, do we have some news for you. Why not check out the episode description for an invitation link and come be part of the ongoing discussion on our very own Drizzt Done Right Discord. You get the chance to be a member of our very own Dim Light Squad.
Love that
we're freshly
name.
coining it. Love it, right? Put it up for a little bit of a vote. Got some of our house nobles to come on in there and check it out. And we've decided that our loyal listeners in the Discord, you're a Dim Light Squad. Love it.
Dim Light Squad.
So the fantastic folks that keep this conversation going far beyond the show. If you raise an interesting point about the chapter, we're going to bring you up on the show.
Absolutely. Man, this Discord, awesome. So much conversation going on, Jeffrey. I can barely keep up with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I like to get on the social medias, keep track of the tabs and stuff like that. And every time I log back into that Discord, there's something either in the discussion board or somebody's putting up some fan art. Like Roland just shared a picture of his cat Gwenwivar, and it is an adorable cat.
Beautiful cat.
We've got stuff like that. We had One of a Kindish who was showing off Canterbury, the miniature that they painted.
Mm-hmm.
Not so miniature, pretty big figurine to look like. But all of our people in the Dim Light Squad just pulling up these, the sweaters, the shirts, the things they draw, the things they bought, even their pets. I love it, man. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, Jeffrey, how are you doing lately?
Well, had the doldrums because the Eagles didn't quite make it to the Super Bowl.
I know. Yeah.
But you know what? All in all, great season. I had a good time watching it. I got to sit home with the wife and, had some ribs, had some wings, had a blast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we didn't do much either. We just kind of sat at home with the kids, watched the first half with the kids, and then they had to go to bed. They were so excited because they're like, oh, we're going to wake up in the morning and they're going to have the Eagles would have won and everything. It was just like,
well, they watched the best half of that game.
They did. They did. Yeah.
Hopefully they forgot about it the next day after they got over it. And,
they were pretty heartbroken. Yeah. And it was pretty rough at work. Hey, so I didn't really get to talk to you about my new job at all, did I?
No, not too much.
Yeah, so it's a good hour away, one way.
Plenty of time to listen to podcasts on your commute.
But yeah, exactly. And that's what I wanted to bring up. I picked up on this podcast. You shouted it out a few weeks ago, but this, Robbins and, what is it? Robbins and...
Backwards. Robert and Robbins Radio.
Robert and Robbins Radio. You guys watched The Goonies and talked about The Goonies. What an awesome episode. I just finished it today.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that movie, what we try to do is it's all those movies that hit the nostalgia for the kids that are no longer kids from the millennial generation. And for me, born in 1981, The Goonies was my sweet spot. Adventuring with your friends, finding hidden treasures. So It was a blast. We're actually, spoiler, we're going to do The Princess Bride next.
Nice.
Yep, I mentioned it in our Discord as far as the fight scene, but that's the movie we settled on. We're gonna rock it out.
Very cool. I'm excited for that one. Yeah. So this, I don't think I told anyone on the any of our Dim Light Squad or anything, but I'm working at a nuclear power plant, and apparently, you need to know a lot of stuff when you work at a nuclear power plant. So, oh man.
I tell you that The Simpsons had me believing that all you got to do is press that button or not press that button.
No. So, man, it has been, we don't even have our class didn't start yet, but we're just being drilled with these questions on this, this, from this database. We're supposed to know how to get through all these questions. And it's just anything from how valves work on different types of valves all the way up to nuclear physics, what's going on in the core of the nuclear power plant. And it's you would expect that people would know what they're doing if they're working there, right?
You would hope so. Yes.
You would hope so. So it's
like maybe the janitor doesn't have all the intrinsic knowledge, but everybody else that's working with it,
yeah. So it's been a lot. So I'm hoping that we continue to be able to find time to record these. But at this point, just so everyone knows, we're just recording episode 9 tonight. And episode 10 will be separate, so hopefully we'll have a chance to get a little bit more of a discussion going on in the Discord in between the episodes, which is something I'm kind of excited to try out here, because, yeah, I'm just changing the format a little bit here. So, yeah.
Got to keep it popping, keep it fresh, give the people what they want.
Yep. All right, well, how about we go ahead and get started here? Let's start this off with the Drizzt. The Drizzt, it's the part of the show where we take a look at this week's chapter and we give you the Drizzt of it.
I love it.
All right, so chapter 9 starts off, with Zaknafein urgently leading Drizzt to House Do'Urden's balcony. Maya and Breeza were already up on the balcony watching what I imagine to be like a fireworks show, right? Blasts of light, pillars of fire. Well, it would be really cool if fireworks shows had pillars of fire, but I mean, just lots of oohs and ahs going on. And but what was really happening was much more eye-opening to the naive Drow. So a Drow house was being attacked by another Drow house. And, all that Breeza, Maya, and Zach did was watch. They didn't do anything about it. Zach informed Drizzt that as long as there were no witnesses, being living nobles from the defending house, after the attack, the ruling council would turn a blind eye on the events. But judging from the absence of a wall of darkness around the compound, the defending house must have been prepared for the attack.
This is something that, like, when you bring up the fireworks display to the naive Drow, I really kind of think and harkens back to, like, all this craziness going on. He sees it from a distance and really isn't sure what it is, so it's got to be dazzling, like,
right,
like you said, with the oohs and the ahs.
Yeah.
And then, like, but to the other Drow, they're just kind of like, yeah, look at that stupid Drow house, like, not even able to do this right.
It's like, how sloppy, like
like watching a construction crew put up a lopsided house, meanwhile they're just sitting there like drinking coffee going,
right,
that's gonna fall over.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work.
And I know during this discussion, what is Drizzt says to the others, like, well, we're witnesses, right? Let's go do something about this. And they're like, we're not witnesses. We're, what do they call them? Onlookers.
Yeah. That's chilling.
Yeah. It's just like, let it happen.
Just the term onlookers. It's like, nah, we're just over here checking it out,
right?
Peeping it.
Yeah. So jumping ahead in the chapter, I decided to stick with House Do'Urden, and then we'll get back to Alton and Massage later. Jumping ahead in the chapter, Zach wakes Drizzt up the next morning, right after the attack. Zach informs Drizzt that they were called to go out of the house today. And this...
on an adventure.
Yeah, we're going on an adventure. And this is Drizzt's first time to walk past the adamantine fence that surrounds the Do'Urden compound. How old is Drizzt at this point? 20 years?
Yeah, it's got to be about 20 years, I believe. And at least, because it was 16 up until the point where he got named Page Prince, or second boy, right?
Right, and then
he's had a couple years,
it was 3 years, so maybe it's 19 years, or but anyway, it's somewhere in that range. He's somewhere in that range, and he's never left the compound, right? Like, talk about a sheltered life. Just crazy. So the curious Drow quickly grabbed his boots and his pawafui, asking Zach during all this, will there be no lessons today? And Zach replies, we shall see. I feel like in that moment, Zach fully knows. He knows fully that there's going to be a lesson today. It's just not going to be concerned with what type of parry works best against this type of attack. It's going to be a lesson in Drow culture.
which is where Drizzt really kind of lacks. Like he's not a master, but he's on a master's level with the weapons already. But
Right.
really is innocent and naive, like you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's 20, but as a Drow comes, that's like a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. The Do'Urden family gathered just outside their gates, and then they made their way together through the city. I think there were, Dinan and Maya went separately because they were in the academy. Not Maya. Who's the other one? Maya, Briza, and Vierna. Vierna's at the academy, so they were separate, but
Yeah, she's
minor
the high
detail.
priestess there for Sorcier, and then
Right.
he would be there for a melee Magthier.
Right. So anyway, minor detail, but they walked together through the city. The city was astir. Loud rumors of the failed raid filled the air. Drizzt, meanwhile, was awestruck by these decorated drow houses as he was walking through. I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more detail in that. Like, what house was he walking by and what did he see? Was he walking by, well, I guess House DeVere. What happened to House DeVere? Like the actual compound. Like, I don't know.
Oh no, I mean, I imagine it's just like a darkened shell until somebody else moves in and takes it.
Like, are the mushroom groves still there? But like, I don't know.
Well, not the Shriekers.
Yeah. So I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more of a description.
When you say like what it looks like with the description, I actually shared today a picture on our Facebook page of like the bazaar, the marketplace.
I saw that.
Menzo Branson, and I thought it was kind of neat because, they never really bring that up.
Yeah.
So I mean, they do in passing and further on in other books, but like as to where we are now, thought it gave a good little look at what they might have walked through to get to the point you're explaining now.
Now, I know we're not reading like Tolkien here, who would go and describe every little minute detail about every single thing, but, I wish that there was just a little bit more on that. But anyway, so they made their way through. They encountered a caravan of gray dwarves, or Duergar, merchants that had stood in Malice's way for just a moment too long. The Duergar were very apologetic. They said it was an honest well, they kind of snapped at her first, right? They're just like, they turn around and they're like, oh.
It's like when you're being flippant and realize the authoritarian figure's behind you. Like, yeah, what do you? Ooh.
He's like, ooh.
That was him.
And so, they were apologetic afterwards, and they're just like, oh, it was an honest mistake. And Malice is like, oh, that's okay. I'll forgive you. But, only if you deliver half of your merch to our house by the end of the day. And, you'll be compensated appropriately, which totally meant that they were not going to be compensated appropriately. But, that was kind of the risk that as a merchant, as someone dealing with the Drow of Menzo Berenzon, that I feel like that's probably a risk that you're taking, right? I mean, so it's,
you would think so, yeah.
I mean, they accepted it because what's going to happen if they don't? So, anyway, we move on. The Do'Urdens finally reach the gates of House Tekendwiz, is how my audiobook pronounced it. I had to listen to the audiobook just to get an idea of, but yeah, Tekendwiz is how.
Nice, I was close. In my head, it was Tekendwi, so I just didn't have the Z on the end of it.
Okay. So, Matron Banray, the matron of the first house of Menzo Berenzon, proclaims that this house has angered the Spider Queen. She waved forward 2 noble females and one noble male, Drow from House Freth. House Freth was the victims of the raid. Together, they accused House Tekendwiz of attacking their house. And then Matron Banray, speaking for the ruling council, announced House Tekendwiz that House Tekendwiz will suffer the consequences of their actions. But before the consequences were carried out, someone yells, "And what of the orphans of House Freth?" And it's like, yeah, anyway, we kind of heard already that as a house gets, if you successfully wipe a house out, then it's like, it's as if they never existed. But hey, what if there are some survivors here? Here you have 2 females and a male. Are they going to start their own? Are they going to continue with House Freth? no, what happens? We have Banray is quick to claim the nobles for herself. And the rest of the soldiers... What's that?
It just absorbs them, sucks them up into a giant house that they already have.
And it's as if House Freth didn't exist anyway. And I don't know. It's wild. But I know that the Matron Malice and someone else, was it Breeza, had some words to say about that. Just kind of like, oh, they already have so many daughters. Do they really need more? And all that.
18 priestesses, I believe it was.
Something like that. It was huge. And then they're like, well, is she going to take on the soldiers too? And nah, they they say that basically it sounds like the soldiers of the house are just going to get like auctioned off to the highest bidder. So Matron Banray then reads basically the last rites to House Tekenduiz and then orders an assault. So then we have the Academy just unleashing hell upon this house. We have summoned demons, exploding glyphs and wards, conjured lightning bolts, balls of acid, and fireballs. Just utterly destroyed House Tekenduiz until it was just a glowing lump of lifeless molten stone, is I think how it's described in the chapter.
Hey man, talk about your firework display. At that point, it's coming from everywhere.
Right.
And, it had to be dazzling.
Just completely leveled, and you have all the nobles of Menzoberranzan just standing around watching. Like, what a display this must have been. And, I mean, the whole scene where the person runs out on the balcony and all that, I think you're going to talk about that later, right? Just,
yeah.
So awesome. Oh, man. But anyway, during this whole process, Drizzt just watched, completely horrified, to the point where on his walk home, he wasn't even watching. He wasn't even like looking at Menzoberranzan anymore. You know, like before on the way out, he's just like, wow, this place is awesome. And on the way back, he's just in shock.
It's neat to watch like that sliding scale of emotions on him, because at first he's very much in awe, like,
yeah.
Ooh. And then by the end of it, it's like he doesn't even want to admit that like there was any moment where he felt those feelings, because he's got like such that macabre sense of impending, not doom maybe, but like just that darkness over his head, you know, like right. Eeyore walking around with that rain cloud. You just can't shake it. It's always there. Like,
yeah,
this is what we are.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Just the confusion, just such a naive drow. And I don't know if, I guess it's because, I mean, he's been raised by Zach pretty much the past how long? And
yeah. I mean, he tried to shelter him too. So you talk about like your first big day out. Like, here's your adventure. You want some ice cream? Well, let's walk past this giant slaughter first.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think there was a lesson for Drizzt today. So
like, yeah, Zach kind of set him up for that. Like, maybe, yeah, definitely smacked him in the face.
There's definitely, yep. All right, the second part of the other story that's going on in this chapter is we have Alton and Massage. We're going back to them. I don't think we heard from them for a couple chapters now. But today was a unique day for Alton because he was being visited by Matron Sinefay, which her name is very similar to Matron Jennifer. Just like one letter difference. Jennifer was House DeVere, right? Or no?
Yeah.
Was she
House
DeVere?
So.
Okay.
Yep.
I just thought that was interesting. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you got a lot of A's, right? Because you have Bainray, Jennifer, Sinefay, and then you got Malice.
Malice. So Matron Sinefay was coming to visit Alton. She's of House Hanette, which is... is that the 6th house? I should have looked it up ahead of time. But she's Massage's mom. So. Yeah, somewhere around there. She's not number 1, obviously, and not number 9 either. So anyway, she is Massage's mommy. And let's see, she's a tiny drow, even for drow standards. She enters the room with Massage at her side.
That's what you need is a Drow with a Napoleon complex. You know, they're not vicious enough already. You got to get them when they're smaller and they get that temper cooked even a little longer.
It's like, oh, so cute. Just boop her on the nose and then you just get dissolved. So Massage, the whole walk in next to his mom is donning just this smug smile, and I mean you know Massage knows something is about to go down. Cinefay greets Alton, saying, "Greetings from House Hannett, Gelroos," and it's like, Gelroos? Oh no! Like
the faceless one figures out he has a name all of a sudden. Like, oh, Alton's in trouble.
But she says 25 years and more it has been since we last talked. And I mean, Alton just all of a sudden just felt sick because obviously the faceless one was from her house.
Yep.
And it's just
Talk
like
about a cool reveal. Like, oh, and what's amazing is Alton Massage never mentioned it.
Right?
Never brought it up.
God. It's like you wouldn't want to disclose that tiny detail before you brought your mom in. It's like, hey,
not only
just
did you
by
murder
the way,
your brother, but you had this guy take the identity of your brother, and you never even told him you know who the faceless one is.
Yeah, it's like 20 years they've been doing this together, and not once has that come out. Crazy. But so we have. Let's see. There was no way he was going to be able to keep this secret from a matron mother. You know, he's getting ready to put on his best acting skills, but now it's just like, that's gone.
Yeah.
Like,
all the lines that he had prepared are just forgot all of them.
So he's trying to keep his cool. He says, like, has it been so very long? And you can just like hear the vibration in his voice because he's just so terrified. Cinefay immediately scowls at him and just begins interrogating him, just like, who are you? And Alton eventually, I mean, pretty quickly, he there's a little bit of a delay there, but he pretty quickly comes clean. The jig is up. He knows he has nothing for him now. He's about to die. And with a little, should I say luck or bad luck, Cinefay decides not to kill him, seeing that this is an opportunity to use Alton to keep watch over her sons that go through the academy, but also to keep watch of her enemies as they go through and kind of keep an eye on them as well.
Now, previous to this, right? So that means Massage never told her either. So, like,
right,
she's walking into this not knowing that Gelroos has been replaced.
Not knowing.
And Massage just has that smile like, oh, I'm going to watch some Springer now. It's going down. It's like, you didn't even warn your mother that you killed your brother and she's going to go find out right now. You waited 20 years to spring it on her now.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I did leave that out, but Massage does jump in and say, like, you know, he didn't kill him. I killed him. This is why, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, she's just like...
That's what made me think of it, because it's like, at that point, he's basically saying, like, this is what happened. And so it's like, you know, she walks in, and when she interrogates, Alton, it's just all off the cuff. Because like, you would think she was prepared to be like, I know you're lying.
Yeah.
No, Massage just lets her walk in, like, whatever. See what happens.
Yep.
Talk about chaos.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, as I was saying, Cinefay decides not to kill him, though, saying basically, like, hey, you're just going to stay here. You're going to continue. DeVere is dead. Alton DeVere is dead. You are now Gelroos. You are the faceless one. And you're going to basically be my eyes.
And, I mean, but she does give him the one thing that he desires, right? Because at the end of it all, she does come out and tell him that it's House Do'Urden. That's the one responsible.
which is the next big, like, so much happened in this scene. It's like the gig is up. You know, someone knows that he's not the faceless one. And now he knows also, Alton knows who destroyed House Severe. So...
I didn't see that in your note part and just ramped right over it.
That's perfectly fine. That's not a problem. But she does instruct him to take no actions against the house. And I know that later on, that becomes a little bit of an issue for him, but we're going to have to wait until we get to that. So Massage and Sinefé then leave Alton to mull over this information that he has fought for at least the past 2 decades to find out. And that's kind of where we're left.
I loved the character development where you do find out that like Alton knows he's facing death. He knows that Matron Sinefé, she could just blast him out of existence with a cool spell. And he's like, you know what? Fine, kill me. But I do have to know who killed my family.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a neat look into the character of Alton and knowing that will foreshadow complications in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've finished up with the Drizzt, how about we go ahead and hit him with the dim light reel? The dim light reel is where we cast darkness on our favorite parts of the chapter and dim light all of our favorite characters, events, descriptions, and more. So for me, obviously, I had to go and take the Judgment of House Tekindui because it's just captivating.
It was phenomenal.
So I think it's extremely important it's to highlight because it's in direct contrast with how this book started, with the raid between House Do'Urden and House DeVere.
Yep.
Like here, we essentially find a blueprint of what not to do when attacking another house, and it starts as a learning moment for Drizzt. Like Breeza points out that the battle's raged on for quite some time, and that there's still flashes of lights going on, showing that the battle it's not going that well.
Right.
Zaknafane, he explains that it should have been blotted out, like we saw when they used the globes of darkness. This is a sign that they did not properly conceal their plans, and that the other house, House Feth, is
Freth?
prepared.
Yeah,
Freth, I think it was prepared and knew that they were coming.
Yep.
And the neat part was that explanation you were talking about between onlookers and witnesses. Because when we first covered the first raid, you wondered how like people weren't going to be able to notice, and Zach explains that they did notice, but they were all onlookers. None of them were witnesses.
Yeah.
Because only the surviving nobles of the house can be witnesses and call for judgment like we see. And what's the penalty for allowing survivors? And we see that judgment towards the end of the chapter.
Yep.
Like all the nobles of House Menzoberranzan, all of the nobles of Menzoberranzan, more than 1,000 of them, were gathered outside of House Tekindui, which had barricaded itself inside, knowing full well what was coming.
Can you imagine what the mood was inside that house?
Have you ever watched Young Guns?
I haven't, no.
Oh man, so it's a quick side jump, but Young Guns features Billy the Kid, Emilio Estevez, and at the end of it, they get all barricaded inside. The sheriff and everybody else is outside, and they've surrounded him with all these men for hire, and they set fire to the house and start shooting at everybody who comes out. And it's like that's where my mind went as soon as I saw this. It's like, oh, everybody's outside, like
there's no escape. What are you gonna do?
So it's like that impending sense of doom has to like just liquefy your insides with fear. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
You had the entirety of all 3 schools of the academy, the students and instructors surrounding it. Matron Bayenray stood at the forefront, leading this council and the performance. She proclaimed that they had angered that Spider Queen. And Zaknafane explains quietly that the Spider Queen's only angered because the house failed in the raid.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 remaining nobles of House Freth were called forth in a piece of like theater and asked to explain to the crowd who had attacked him. Like, what do you think that the point of that rehearsal was? Like this whole act that they're putting on?
Yeah, I don't entirely know. I mean, it definitely seems like a very rehearsed thing, but perhaps it has something to do with making sure that, everything is publicly known and everyone is, they're acting within the, like, how do I want to word this? Like, such that they are remaining within Lul's favor. They're trying to be, it's almost like a lawful aspect of their society. It's
like they're washing their hands of the evil that they're about to do, and they're justifying their actions. Right.
That's perfect. Yeah. Like, no, I think that's great.
For me, I kind of felt like it was like an Old West hanging where they bring the whole town out to take witness and take like joy in all these macabre events. Where you see like especially like the beheadings in the French Revolution when they show it, and it's everybody's out there like, oh, you're guilty. And they're throwing like rotten fruit at them, and they're all taking part in the action so that the people who are committing the act are absolved of the
Right.
action itself. I
Yeah.
guess,
Hmm.
So to me, it's interesting how the matriarchy keeps a firm control through propaganda of sorts. Everyone knows what happened, even when there is a successful raid. So they're all like onlookers, even when it works out. However, this theater serves to reinforce the justification of the violence that's about to be doled out, much like they're instructed to hate the others for their suffering, like the
Mhm.
surface elves. They're the reason things went wrong. They just pound that uh, education
Right.
into your head. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Just to make sure that these drow feel that anger and that hatred.
Yeah.
That justified hatred. And they're taught that this eradication and power grab is because Lolth was angered, because the offending house was sloppy and not worthy of their station. It's like it's crazy to me when they, especially because Matron Malice talks about like wanting to be on the council, and why does she
Hmm.
want to move her house onto that council so bad? Well, we see the power and responsibility that comes with being on that council. Matron Bainray, she leads the council, and then
Hmm.
she is the number one house, absolutely top dominant, powerful one for generations, and she still gets to go ahead and take the spoils of the war she didn't even fight.
Right. Like crazy.
Like it's crazy because then it further ensures her favor in the eyes of Lolth. So again, nothing that she did but
Right.
benefit.
Yep.
It's a perk of the ruling council,
I
perhaps.
I guess. Yeah.
It's crazy. So just surviving a raid doesn't bring any honor to your house or justice. It just feeds you to a higher house
Yeah.
without a battle even being needed.
Your house is still dead either way.
Right? What do you think like the cutoff is though for like being absorbed? Just the loss of the matron mother? Do you need like 6 nobles, 7 nobles? Because like
Oh.
three evidently is not enough. They're just going to swallow that up.
I wonder if the matron would survive. I wonder if the house would continue.
Right. So it's what makes you think that, again, through the matriarchal setup of it, they
Right.
never really mentioned the matron. But I think that, if the matron would have survived with those 3 children, that it would have continued, even
I
though it would be a
yeah.
smaller house.
No, I think that must be the way that it would be. But even what if there was like a daughter to take her place, just like there is now,
You
but
mean like Briza? Like Briza is like higher
right.
up on the echelon and actually ready to take the place of Matron
Right.
Malice.
So at what point, and this is kind of going off in a different direction, but at what point does Breeza say, I'm going to make my own house and, or
Well, it's neat because when they mention it, I believe through the book, I don't know if they really went into detail of any of it yet, as far as the ambitions of Briza. But like, does she have to assassinate Matron Malice and take her place, or
either
can she just
that
create another house?
or does Matron Malice need to die of old age or die in a raid or,
Yep.
yeah. No, it's
Brings up
interesting.
the interesting political conundrums inside the House of Drow.
Yeah.
So then, speaking of battle, Matron Bayanray, she then unleashes the entire academy, which is the dispatcher of justice, onto House Tekenwe. And this is where I thought like it really got descriptive and beautiful
Yeah.
in a macabre kind of way. Like the great braziers, braziers, giant fire cauldrons are in positions in like 8 different places, and they're attended by the mistresses of Arak Tinalith, who open the gates of the lower planes to these huge, many-armed monsters that step through, and they're described as a grotesque horde. I just think that's
Yeah.
so cool. I couldn't find anything that explicitly like pictured them,
Right.
but it's these many-armed monsters. They described the one with 10 arms, and it just
Yeah.
stuck in my head as
Yeah.
this just like giant kraken-esque monster with like no voice or anything,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
mashing through everything.
My head goes to like it's not described this way, but like an army of undead with like hodgepodges that just have like arms sewn to them, like 3
Yeah.
heads and just like yeah, that's where my mind went, but it's not really described that way, but that'd be really cool.
Well, that grotesque horde eagerly descends upon the house. It's like, oh, they roll straight through the glyphs and wards, through which is described as a feeble gate, which is interesting because they've previously stressed the greatness of the gates of House Bayanray and House Do'Urden. But now we see a feeble one that's rolled through with ease. So I found that kind of cool because it's like, why do they spend so much time focusing on these gates? And it's like, well, here's this house that's, a little further down the list, not doing so great. And it's like, but their gate is feeble.
Right.
Then you get the wizard and students of Sorcerer who start slamming the house with the lightning bolts, balls of acid, fireballs. And then the students and masters of Melee Magthier rush around with these heavy crossbows firing into the windows, essentially like shooting fish in a barrel. The screams of House Tekindwe echo out across the way for all to witness. The screams serve to snap Drizzt from the awe of the situation that was on display before him. Drow justice is put on excruciating display as a son of House Tekindwe tries to escape through one of the high windows onto the balcony, fleeing this 10-armed giant monster. A dozen crossbow bolts strike him at once, nowhere to run. And before he even falls, he's lit up with several lightning bolts. The mutilated corpse then starts to slide off the balcony, but the grotesque monster reaches out a clawed hand to pull the corpse back in and devour it. This would continue for another hour until the entire house was eradicated. Like, it's not even enough to get shot by the crossbow bolts, because these guys are out there and they're just hanging out, you know, having a smoke and a joke and laughing, and it's like, ooh, target, ting, 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 a dozen crossbow bolts. But then all the wizards are like, target, and they all unleash all theirs.
Now,
and it's like, you watch that body just go limp, and it's been dead, and it's like, well, there it goes.
I was gonna say,
like, and it gets eaten.
I was gonna say, like, after the crossbow bolts, he's gonna die. He might not be dead instantly, but he's gonna die. And they're like, nah, we'll electrocute him to death. Okay, now he's definitely dead. And it's like, nah, go ahead and just devour that.
Yeah. And that's what spoke to me about, like, you know, the beheadings of the French Revolution, the hanging of the Old West, is it's these mob mentality where not only do they cheer it on, not only do they feel justified in being a part of it, but they want to be a part of it. So when one guy fires, everyone fires. When one guy jumps in, all of them jump in. It's like they just can't wait to also be a part of that vengeful justice. Like, they'll go get them. Yeah. And it's just really kind of like a sobering look at just how vicious these Drow are.
Now, I don't think we were told explicitly, but I mean, it was the Academy that was attacking partially, right?
All three of them.
So that, I mean, yeah, right. So that would include, like, Vierna and Dinan would have been in there, right?
That's why they were there. They were like Drizzt at one point. They say was hoping to catch a look of them, because I believe Vierna would have been with Iraq Tinolith, and then Dinan would have been with Melee Magthier. So he would have had a heavy crossbow firing away just like all the other ones.
He was one of the 12 there, probably.
Throwing, you know, she would have been helping call forth the grotesque horde from the fire braziers.
But then I guess all of the people that were not in the Academy, all the nobles that came to watch, were they just watching? Or were they also
I think they were just on the outside, like, you know, cheering it on, like, oh, hey, maybe they bought a couple of hot dogs and a bunch of popcorn or something, you know? You know, watching the parade go downtown, like, oh, there they go.
Oh, man. Crazy. No, that description was probably the coolest description in the chapter, if not the whole book so far, of the guy just getting hit 12 times, electrocuted, and then eaten. Just that whole scene was just like, whoa.
And it lets you know just how overkill it is. Because again, like, one Drow could have killed him. One priestess, you know, could have just hit him with a spell. One cleric could have killed him with a lightning bolt, probably. But no, it took dozens of them all at once, just overkill. It's just, because again, they had so much more armament than House Tekindwe.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you took my dim light for this week, but that's all right, because my next choice was shooting on over with Alton and Massage, with their scheme becoming revealed, along with Devir's killers becoming revealed as well. So, of course, that judgment of Tekindwe's was awesome and eye-opening. My dim light is going to have to be with Alton and Massage here. So, Alton, again, was expecting the matron mother to visit him. I don't know if you can hear my dog or not, or dogs, they're out playing.
They're in the background cheering us on.
Yeah. So, again, Alton was expecting this matron mother. He was really nervous. He had reason to be nervous for this interaction. His acting skills were about to be put to the test, but he had no idea what he was in for. When matron Sinafe of House Hunnett comes striding in with the smug-looking Massage at her side, it was easy to see that Massage knew that something was about to go down.
I like that because it's like I can almost picture him peacocking when he walks, like that billionaire strut, chest out, smile on his face.
So, then Sinafe refers to Alton as Gelruz. Gelruz? Whatever, Gelruz. And says that his quarters remain untouched back home. And again, Alton's just like, oh, crap.
The faceless one has a name.
And the faceless one's last name was Hunnett. So, poor Alton. This
like
guy,
a dozen crossbow bolts hit him right there.
This guy just cannot catch a break, Jeffrey.
No, literally.
Last time we checked in with him, he was... like at the end of the chapter, he was just like, oh man, how long am I going to have to put up with this? How long is it going to be until I find out who killed my house? How long, am I going to be the faceless one? And just like, but I mean, perhaps not much longer, right? Because, he's about to get killed by this matron, right?
About to get eaten by a giant 10-armed, by the matron. Yeah. Matron's going to swallow him whole.
So he keeps trying, as he's looking around, he's like, oh, where should I go? And he's like, oh, there's no way I'm getting out of here. He sees that the matron, Sinafe, is casting a spell as soon as she recognizes that Alton is not Gelruz. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to escape. Maybe I can at least kill Massage before I leave. Before I die, rather. Not leave. Well, leave in spirit.
Even then, they can bring him back. It's a horrifying setup. He is in trouble.
So he just lays everything out in front of her. He's just like, look, my name's Alton DeVere, and Gelruz tried to kill me, basically. And, I mean, you're just kind of like waiting for Sinafe to... There's just like a moment there where it's just like, man, he's toast. And the Massage...
like long, pregnant pauses.
Yeah. And then Massage just like dives in. It's like Massage could have not said anything and it would have been perfectly fine. Like he would have been perfectly safe. No, but he
covered his tracks.
He goes ahead. He goes in and he says, he chimes in and tells her how the Faceless One died from his crossbow.
That he's holding in his hands.
Currently. Yeah. And so how did Sinafe not kill both of them right then and there? But just such a tense moment. Matron Sinafe goes on to charge Alton to continue his role as Gelruz Hunnett as if nothing had happened, saying, I can use your eyes in the academy to watch over my sons and my enemies. So I guess she was thinking that... That's what Gelruz did before he died. So she would rather continue having eyes from from that vantage point, right? So why not let Alton continue this scheme?
Yeah.
And you kind of she has something to hold over him, just like, I know your secret. Basically.
Yeah, and I think what it really does is it speaks again to the character of a matron. So when you see her, she's caught off guard, has no idea her son's been killed, and she doesn't bat an eye. She automatically figures out how she's going to use this to her advantage. Like, not only can she use him as Gelruz was, as a high position, somebody in her family who brings honor, but she can use him to manipulate the path forward for Massage.
Yeah. So
he's going to help Massage learn everything he needs to become an even more respected member of her house.
Yeah.
So it's like she's got leverage that she didn't know about, but turns around suddenly and goes, I can use you as I was using you.
Right.
But I can use you more. So you know what? It's not worth killing you. You're mine.
Yeah. And at that point, she's basically just like, Alton DeVere's dead. You're Gelruz now.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of me is just kind of like, well, is that the smartest thing to do? Because you don't know him. You know that he doesn't have a house to back him, so he's not going to be able to do much, but at the same time, just you don't know him. You don't know what he's going to do in the future. especially once she reveals that like House Do'Urden was the house that killed off House DeVere. Like, I feel like he's just gonna like snap and do something crazy now, and I don't know. I don't
feel
know.
like at that point, I think they do mention it later in the chapter. They're like, she can then kind of distance herself from it and
I
just be like,
guess.
nobody's going to believe just this rogue
Right.
weirdo. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, he's got no house to back him, nobody to say anything. So, like, yeah, let him say what he wants. Or he can get his vengeance and justification through us. And it's like, she kind of gives him that little, like, carrot at the end of the
Yeah.
stick and
Yep.
dangles
Yep.
in front of him.
So that had to be my main dim light there, just for the sheer intensity of that moment where it's just kind of like, oh crap, something's
Yeah.
going down. Like, what's gonna happen? And then she just like flips, and it's just like, whoa, like you just don't expect that. But yeah, as soon as she starts casting that spell, it's just kind of like she could have easily just dissolved Alton in that moment. But yeah, it was just that whole moment there. But anyway, that's my dim light. You did your dim light. So, what time is it, Jeffrey?
That means it's time to delve into the dungeon, taking the dungeon delve. As you guys probably know by now, the Dungeon Delve is that part of the show where we link this chapter to our favorite tabletop role-playing game. For me, I had to choose the Grey Dwarves, or the Duergar, or the Dwerger. So sometimes for me, I get really intrigued into the different races and characters that you find in the Underdark. So I wanted to do a little delve into the Duergar, the Grey Dwarves, or also called the Underdwarves. They're a subterranean, right? Well, not the overdwarves, they're under. They're a subterranean race of dwarves, which is a bit odd to me because I personally thought that all dwarves were essentially living inside of mountains, and therefore subterranean.
Yeah.
But,
Anyway.
right? They technically they're comparable to the Drow as they are to the surface elves. So you have surface elves that live and prance in the sunlight. Then you have the Drow that are totally underneath all the time. Then you have like for the Grey Dwarves, you would have say Bruner Battlehammer, who lives in a mountain but goes out and trades and adventures on the sunlight surface.
Okay.
Doesn't have any problems. Whereas the Grey Dwarves usually are near a volcano and stay underground almost all the time. According to Morden Kanan, he's a prolific archmage from the world of Oath, which is a planet located at the center of the gray space, a crystal sphere located in the prime material plane. He says, consider that the Dwerger began as homeless outcasts, and today their fortresses are some of the most impregnable strong points in the Underdark. The question might not be if they will conquer the realm below, but when. They're typically thick, stocky figures like most dwarves, but they do differ in a few regards. Both the males and females are typically bald, and the females lack the capacity to grow facial hair. Their dull gray skin and hair set them apart from regular dwarves, usually insulting them by saying that they have flat heads. The ones that find their way to the surface, this is where they would no longer be subterranean. The ones that you do find, they're normally like criminal exiles, and they're tattooed on their arms or faces to mark them as traitors to their people. Found that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
They're described as tyrannical, grim, industrious, and pessimistic, which definitely reinforces the description in this chapter when they feel like they've been slighted in trade with Matron Malice as they're caught in a conflict with each other trying to trade with the Drow. They can be brave and determined, but they also take dwarven flaws to the extremes. They're violent, hateful, sullen, insular, greedy, and ungrateful, deeply cynical, and tend to nurse every grudge, whether it's intended to be one or not. They are dauntless perfectionists whose station in life could be measured by how much they acquire. A lawful evil alignment is a natural fit for them. Found that kind of cool, is like that little backstory to them. It really kind of sets the tone because they're creatures of the Underdark, but
Right.
it's the Drow are the most vicious, but the Dwerger are not nice, happy people.
Right.
They, as far as their classes, they're commonly fighters or rogues who would go on to become assassins or blackguards. They primarily speak Do'Urden, which is a dialect of Dwarven, descended from the dialect of Shield Dwarves, which is how they refer to, again, like Bruner and the Surface Dwarves, which is heavily influenced by Mind Flayer and Drow words. Second languages are usually Draconic, Drow, Giant, Goblin, Orc, or Terran, which is basically everybody they're going to come into contact with while they do their trading. They are worshippers of Ladogar, the dwarven god of crafting. They have an advantage on saving throws against poison spells and illusions, as well as to resist being charmed or paralyzed. While in the sunlight, they have a disadvantage on attack rolls, as well as wisdom checks that rely on sight, low perception in the bright light.
Okay, so I guess they also have superior dark vision than just like the Drow.
Yep.
Okay.
What I found to be really interesting is that they can magically increase in size, as they said, like bonus to illusion.
Okay.
So anything that they carry with them also increases in size. It lasts for 1 minute and it recharges after a short or long rest. As we know, playing the game, though, 1 minute's going to give you 10 actions.
Yep.
So while they're large, the damage dice are doubled on strength-based weapon attacks. So if you attack with 4 dice, you now attack with 8 dice.
Holy moly.
And the strength checks and saving throws you get to make with advantage while you're giant or large.
And you get double damage dice? Holy moly.
If there's not enough room for you to become large, then they become as large as the room allows. So they just basically swell up and take up all
It's like a gas. They fill their container.
Yeah. The 2 weapons that they're listed to start with are like a war pick and a javelin, which takes advantage of that large size bonus that they get. They also have invisibility, which it lasts until they attack, cast a spell, or use enlarge. If the concentration isn't broken, the invisibility spell can last for an hour. So you're in the Underdark. You're a gray dwarf. Nothing can see you because you can go invisible.
I mean, other gray dwarves could.
Yeah, could they see you though? Oh, right, because they get the advantage of perception. Right.
Yeah.
But it's like that's kind of crazy to think of all their benefits. And then like you can suddenly cast enlarge. So when they do see you, you're twice the size you used to be.
Well, enlarge and invisibility probably are both concentration, right?
That's what I'm saying. You can go from one to the other. You'd have to transition. You would lose the invisibility, but then automatically be large. Which, when you think about it, for a dwarf, that's kind of like a boost to their ego, right? Like, now I'm a large creature.
Yeah.
They do have dark vision. It's 120 feet.
Yeah.
And they're usually wearing like heavier armor, like scale mail, and carrying a shield. Their hit points are 4d8 plus 4 with a speed of 25 feet. Strength and constitution are the favored traits of when you're building your Duergar. I have never played a Duergar, but I tell you, when reading all this stuff, I kind of automatically picture how fun it would be to just be this surly, nasty, just powerhouse.
Maybe we'll have to do an evil campaign sometime. I've never done a straight evil campaign. I'm kind of scared of it.
I feel like Dad would be on point for that one. Like, oh, you guys are going evil? Count me in.
He already did it before. He did that before with his other group, and I'm just like, oh, that would be really tough. Like, how would you guys not kill each other all the time?
Honor among thieves, or honor among a pack of thieving murder hobos.
So, did you see anything? I didn't see anything in your notes. Anything about like when the Duergar first showed up in D&D or anything like that? Did you see anything like that?
No, I didn't. I was using, I believe it was the wiki, the D&D wiki or the Forgotten Realms wiki to go through it.
Yeah.
But I didn't see as far as when they showed up. I do know that they talked about like their inferiority complex, essentially.
Okay.
And the strife that they go through comes from being like the same way that dwarves were basically crafted to become servants of their god, and then they were imbued with souls later on, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So it's like through that process, they kind of split one way and dwarves went the other, but I don't know when they actually showed up in the modules.
Right, yeah. I know that World of Warcraft did not come up with what gray dwarves by they're not even called gray dwarves in World of Warcraft. I forget what it's called. But they do have a race. It's a non-playable race. It's NPCs that you're fighting. In like Loch Modan, there's these dark dwarves or whatever they're called. And that's what I always think of when I hear these gray dwarves. Just these evil dwarves. And but I know, again, World of Warcraft did not make that up because World of Warcraft started in like 2004. And this book alone was, what, early 90s or late 80s? But anyway, so... anything else on Grey Dwarves?
No, that wraps me up.
Cool. My dungeon delve stems from Matron Sineve's instruction to Alton, or should I say Gelruz, but it's the instructions that she gives to him concerning House Do'Urden. She says, you will take no action against them. So, I wanted to talk about actions a little bit, because, as we know, one of the most popular things about D&D is the combat style. It plays much like a turn-based tactical board or video game, just like Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy Tactics, or apparently XCOM. I've never actually played XCOM.
XCOM's a good one. It's really hard because of that.
Yeah, I've heard it's really good, and it's like, it's on my list of things to play, but there's just too many games to play, Jeffrey. Just too many.
I agree.
Like,
thankfully, I got it as a free game, and I played a little bit of it, but it is really cool because you have to set everything in motion ahead of time, and it plays out turn-based. Yeah, really cool.
Like, I play a few games that are like that, but then there's other, like, Hogwarts Legacy just came out, Jeffrey. And I'm
I will have it in April because I'm an old console.
Well, I'm like, I have my PC, and it's like I could play it on that. But I'll probably just wait.
Like all political aspects of that game aside, I've heard it is beautiful.
I've heard it's one of the most, one of the most immersive games. Just the detail in it. So I'll get it eventually, I'm sure. But so anyway, in these tactical games, you can you control a character, moving them around. Well, or characters. In D&D, just one character usually, unless you're the DM, and you move them around. On your turn, you move them around on the board, and then they are allowed to make an action. So most people move around the board, and then they use their action to attack the bad guys.
That's me. I am most people up until we started playing in depth. I just ran around and attacked everything.
Right, exactly. It's move, attack, move, attack, move, whatever. And so that's what most people do. But did you know that there are many other things that you're able to do as your action? Of course.
No, I did not. Fill me in.
You know now, Jeffrey.
Wow. Okay, but it sounds good. What are those actions?
So, of course, deciding how you use your action can totally be up to the discretion of your dungeon master. But the rules as written outline the major actions that can be taken on page 192 of the Player's Handbook. If it wants to come into focus, there you go. These actions are as follows. Number 1, you can attack, which you already know. You can make a melee or a ranged attack using a weapon. All right. Hey, if you are a spellcaster, you can cast a spell, cast Fireball. Just know Fireball has a very big explosion range, so be careful where you cast that. If you are particularly far away from enemies and you're a melee attacker, you can actually use your action to dash, which means that you're going to get to move your full movement again for a second time. So that's something that most people at least are aware of to the point where they'll use that. As a DM, I forget about it all the time with my monsters. Where it's just like, my monsters move their movement and they can't reach you. Darn it. Like, you guys are killing them from so far away. It's like, oh, wait. They can dash.
I don't mind when you forget that at all.
I know, right? So as a PC, you can disengage. Disengage means that you're going to escape the reaches of an enemy without provoking an opportunity attack. Basically, whenever you are next to an enemy and you're moving away, when you're moving out of their range, that gives the enemy a chance to use what is called a reaction to attack you, an attack of opportunity. And so generally, when you are directly next to or within the reach of an enemy, players don't want to move out of the reach of the enemy because then they basically get a free attack. So if
now, is that every character? Because I do know that certain classes give the ability like Misty Step, which allows you to just take off and not have it. But so any character can use a full action to disengage and then their movement speed to take off.
Correct. Yep. Of course, like abilities like Misty Step would say like you get to move out of, you move, I forget what Misty Step is. Is it 30 feet or 60 feet or even 120 feet? You're moving away, but it's like a blip. And so the enemy does not have a chance to react to it. which means they don't get to do an opportunity attack. So that's disengage. You could use your action to dodge. And that makes it sound like you're dodging one thing. But no, dodging is you get to attempt to dodge all the attacks on you until your next turn, which is really cool. Dodge gives the enemies disadvantage on attacks against you until your next turn. It also gives you advantage on any dex saving throws. So hey, as like a paladin, maybe you don't have a magical weapon, so you can't do any damage to these werewolves. But you're up there, you're taking the brunt of the damage, and you're just like, hey, I'm going to use my action to dodge. And then every single melee attack from these werewolves on you is disadvantage. Like
that'd also help if there was like a bunch of archers, and you couldn't close the distance fast enough, so you just try to dodge.
Right, exactly, yeah.
4 or 5 attacks at you, then they have disadvantage on every shot.
Yeah, and so I feel like we never used dodge before, Jeffrey.
No,
I don't think we
some
did.
of these things I'm kind of like, I'm working through with you to be like,
yeah.
So that's how it works?
Exactly, yeah. We should make like a cheat sheet out of these and just have them like in Roll20 in the corner of our screens and just
during
refer
the next
to them.
game, everybody's going to be like, why do you have your other laptop out? It's like, I'm looking through an outline.
You can use your attack to help, which means that you're going to lend aid to a creature to help them perform some task. So this results in the aided creature having advantage on a skill check or an attack on their turn, which is pretty cool. You can hide, which is rolling. It's when you roll a stealth ability check in an attempt to conceal yourself from enemies. Perhaps you're hiding behind a rock, you're jumping into the bushes, you're trying to hide somewhere else, whatever. The DC of that would totally be at the discretion of the dungeon master, though.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, well, it's not really going to be easy for you to hide around here. It might be a DC of 15 or even higher, but, if you're in the middle of the woods, there's a lot of brush. Yeah, it's a DC 10 to hide. You can use your action to ready an attack. So perhaps you can't quite reach the bad guys. You're just like, oh, well, my bow cannot go that far, but hey, I'm going to knock an arrow and get ready to shoot an arrow. As soon as they're within range, I'm going to let one rip. And that's readying that attack. Now, of course, when you are readying an attack, you can't just be like, I'll do my attack later, so come back to me later.
Right, so you got to kind of have a plan in mind for what you exactly or specifically want to do with that action.
Exactly. You need to say, this is what I'm going to do when this happens. And if this never happens, the attack never gets triggered. So
you just lose it.
Right. And which sounds bad, but it's like, I don't know.
At that point, what were you going to do with it anyway, right? Because
Right.
if you could have, then you probably would have either attacked or dodged or
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah. You can use your action to search, which is basically devoting your attention to finding something. Depending on the situation, your DM might have you roll perception or investigation. So if you're trying to use your eyes, nose, ears to sense something, it would be perception. Investigation would be kind of like analyzing things and figuring it out.
I always kind of personally think this happens a lot when you have those sneaky little rogues in your party who you're out there slaughtering and bashing in the bad guys, and they're like, I'm going to check the dead body for loot and treasure real quick.
Exactly. So what's in the treasure chest?
Yeah. And you're like, well, hold on. We're fighting. And you're like, but you can't metagame. Your characters are too engaged in action.
Yep.
So they're like, nope. I'm using my action to search for treasure on the body. So then by the time you're done, it's like, why did none of these guys have anything worth value on them? And the rogue's over there with bulging pockets. I don't
know. You can use your action to use an object. So, and that's kind of the last one that's listed in the manual, using an object. And this really varies depending on the object. Like interacting with some objects may take up your whole action. Simple interactions such as drawing a sword, that doesn't take up your action. Putting on a hood, that's not a full action.
I was just going to say, we tie it back when Zach put his magic hood on. Exactly, right? It's not 6 seconds. If you can do it in less than 6 seconds, probably normally wouldn't take up an action.
Right. So again, that's something that would be up to the discretion of the DM. But I mean, like tying off a rope, that's going to take a little bit of time. So I would say that would probably be an action. But I mean, just like quickly pulling out a sword or quickly pulling out your bow, that's not going to be a full action. Now, of course, if you want to do something that is not listed as an action here, I mean, as long as you have a good DM, you should be able to tell them, like, this is what I would like to do. And then they would come up with a way to make it work, right? So maybe it's not something that's specifically listed here. And it's like, oh, well, why don't you just like roll this and then roll that and we'll see what happens and that kind of thing. But
no, that's one of my favorite things about D&D is the complete improvisation ability. I don't know how to say the big word that I'm thinking of, but is that just anything you can do? If you want to fight with the wall sconce off the wall, you can grab that and throw it if you don't have anything in your pack.
That's going to be an ability check.
Yeah, you got to be able to get it off the wall. Yeah, all those things. But like, if you can envision it, then there should be a way for it to happen, because it's not everything just listed in the book. The great thing about D&D is the adaptability to your imagination.
Yeah. So I will say that Cinefe said to take no action against House Do'Urden, right? Perhaps she needs to rethink that, because I mean, she would probably be okay with Alton taking like a hide action against them.
Right. Roll that stealth.
So anyway, that's my dungeon delve. And I think just like that, episode 9 is coming to a close. So if you stuck with us through the entire episode, you're awesome. Thank you. Make sure to give us a rating on your way out. I'm looking forward to reading chapter 10, and I hope you are too.
And as always, if you don't have time to read, you know what? Try it a little differently this time. Come on through our Discord and check out our user in the Dimlight Squad. Name is Short Bus Zombie. He's got a YouTube page where he narrates the chapters for you. You can find it at Linktree/Russell P. Johnson. It's Russell with 2 L's. And he talk about professional. He sounds like he's at the Masterpiece Theater giving a grand lecture. You can listen to it during your commute, like Justin, at work, at the gym, in the dungeon, or wherever else you prefer not to read. When you listen to chapter 9, you go ahead and shoot us an email at drizztdoneright@gmail.com, or you go ahead and log into that Discord, join in on the discussion. Remember, we'd love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you, and I definitely need to log in and listen to Short Bus Zombie. I had no idea. That's so cool. Anyway, it's been a blast, but now it's time to say goodbye.
No, I don't want to leave. No. I protest.
Okay.
Nope. We don't have to leave. We can just sit here and leave open air forever.
Jeffrey, I got to get to bed. I have work tomorrow.
Fine. Farewell to you all. Play fair. Be well.